Have you ever worked in an architecture group or supported an architecture group? Now, this is on the software architecture side, or systems architecture, information technology. And you just thought that the architecture team or your team's name should actually be Dr. No. Is that really kind of the impression you're giving people, or that they're getting, that the answer to everything is no? You see this sometimes because the architects and other teams that aren't in the direct delivery line actually have a list of NFRs, non-functional requirements, that the business doesn't actually care about. And delivery is completely driven by the business, right? They get paid by the business to support the business. And architecture often are the ones pushing some NFRs, and because they own target state, they base their solution on platforms or components that don't exist yet. And it's not clear, like, I don't know how to draw the lines here, but it's not clear that the delivery for those platforms and the delivery for those solutions is actually gonna make it in time for the delivery teams. You actually see this a lot right now in big data governance, big data catalogs, a lot of the new regulations, right? The teams are out building applications, but architecture is trying to figure out how to support regulatory items. So what are the warning signs that you may be Dr. No if you're in architecture? Teams could avoid you, right? Like, you could have risky solutions deployed without architecture review. People are going around the architecture team, right? And when they do that, they do it because they know there's going to be problems, right? It could be because they're trying to shirk their duty. It could also be because every time you're in a meeting with architecture, no one knows who can make a decision. I went through this for about a year, supporting some teams at one company, and it became clear that everybody could say no, but nobody could actually say yes, that we could do something, right? And so that's a problem. And teams are told they use patterns, right? Like, if you're out there telling people they need to do something a certain way, and then you look at it and, like, that thing can't possibly exist on their schedule, or it's not going to, then you're really telling them, no, they can't get this done. So that's the same thing about infrastructure that does not exist. Teams often get surprised by extra non-functional requirements. Oh, we need to do this security lockdown. We need to do this cloud thing, if you're lucky enough to be in the cloud and not in your own data center, right? You got to do this audit thing. California passed the Privacy Protection Act a year ago, and we need to implement it in the next 3 months because we didn't do any work on this, right? So that doesn't make you Dr. No, but it makes the teams pretty bitter about it, right? And like I said before, the teams hide from architecture. That's another one. The alternative is people have been told architecture needs buy-in, and so teams won't do any work until architecture shows up and approves it. And in some ways that's great, but in other ways it makes architecture a roadblock, and it means the teams truly don't understand what the requirement is because they're going to demand that somebody else approve everything. And we do want it reviewed, but we don't want teams to feel like they can't do anything. And the last one, a lot of times that you may be Dr. No, is you have an approved solution where the resources weren't available. I worked in a group and we were making everybody use a certain version of Kubernetes. We were actually doing this container-based deployment, but it turned out the platform we were mandating people use wasn't actually going to be available for them until 6 to 9 months after their delivery date. And so we left them with no way to deploy their application by corporate policy. I mean, you are definitely Dr. No when you tell somebody to do something that they actually can't do. And they would prefer not to be reorged out of existence, so that tends to make you unpopular. So part of the problem is the different groups actually have different roles and different goals. So architects, they really pointed at target state. In the future, we want it to look like this. We want it to be secure. We want it to meet regulation. We want teams to share a platform if we've got 9 groups all building the same thing. They go after reliability. A lot of times teams will push something in and they'll do that in a hurry because they got to meet some date. So reliability, a lot of times the business doesn't care if people are on call in the middle of the night as long as it's not the business. But architects care about that. They don't want the tech teams to be in there touching things. And the timeline for architects tend to be like 1 to 3 years, right? It can be a couple years out because they're going to be looking at some target state that's pretty far out. The delivery teams, they are completely driven by lowest cost. They are being pushed to deliver faster. So everything extra you make them do besides deliver a business function is seen as a delay. In a lot of ways, they want simplicity, right? You're going to try and put them on some multi-tenant platform or something else. They're like, they just want to build something and run it because then it's simple. But if your company scales up, then you've got 400 simple solutions instead of like 2 moderately complex ones. And their timeline tends to be 3 to 6 months. They talk about year end, but really they can only plan out like 2 program increments. And I'm assuming a program increment's like a quarter. The business, on the other hand, what are their goals? They want to have complete flexibility. They want to be able to change requirements at any time. They want to be able to deliver something different when they realize something didn't go on. They want whatever they need to worry about to be immune to the platform or to the technology that it's based on. So, they don't want to be held up by some group thing. They want good press. So really they're driven around like new business functions, right? Like some new feature in the web app might be more important than data security or access controls. And they only care about this fiscal year. So their timeline could be a whole year, but really they only care about this year because their bonuses, business and management's bonuses, are going to be based on this fiscal year. So Wall Street actually drives us to a different cadence than probably makes sense. And bonuses do too. All right. So the architect's view, everyone's view is different, right? So the executive view of architecture is that they are an agent for data governance. They're an agent for security. They're an agent for standards. They're a single place that teams should be able to go to learn a little bit about all of that. At a lot of places. Some places it's not. They're there to augment the skills of the teams. They may pick a complicated solution and aid them in some way. And that the architects have great visibility into the team so that nothing bad can happen. This is almost never true. And in some ways, the executive view architect is overhead, right? Because what will happen is the business will complain or the dev teams will complain that architecture is in there slowing things down. And if it comes down to delivering highly scalable, secure features late or doing a business feature early that's kind of iffy and we'll go back and fix it later, then the architects a lot of times, that whole department will get blown up. All right. The dev team's view of architects is that's the place they send hard stuff. It's a place when they need cross-team help. Like it's good for getting help. Hey, these other teams are giving us a hard time. We're going to go to architecture because they're the ones that have visibility into both teams. So that's actually a plus when they do that. They have worry about mandates. Oh man, the architects are always come up with some mandate. We've gotten a huge argument about 3 years back. We decided to use Docker. It's like this containerized thing. And one of the teams, nobody on the team, they had deliberately underbought all the developer machines. And so none of them could run this. And the manager got pretty frustrated that architecture had made a decision that caused them to have to buy up their machines. You know what? They should have bought up those machines the whole time. Those machines were underpowered 3 years ago. They weren't just underpowered today. But that kind of thing happens. Dev teams view it as random NFRs, and they view them as rhythm breakers. Architects always poking in the metal of something to go, oh, that's actually going to be a data breach problem, or that's going to be an access problem, or that's going to be not scale. And they view the architects as overhead. So on one hand, they want to use them as a lever against other teams, but they also view them as overhead when they bother them. The architect's view is they own target state. They are the checks and balances for the whole system. They are the mentor. They're the company protector. But they have limited visibility, unlike what the executives think, and they have limited authority. So they actually, a lot of times the dev teams can actually override the architect view because if they put it in prod and it's wrong, if the business is happy, the architects don't have a lot of leverage a lot of times. So I think architecture can change their name, and it's not easy because they're in the kind of in-between the world between the business and governance and target state and all that kind of thing. Architects should attend business initiative meetings. A lot of places, architects are cut out. There's no technical that because it's a business meeting. I actually think high-level architects should be in all of that. So they have some idea where the business thinks they want to go. And they should have a regular cadence with developers and testers. My personal opinion, and I got shut down on this at one place, but not others, is that architecture should be in front of the technical community on a regular basis, and their value should be displayed every time they do that. And that architecture should actually have their top 5 deliverables the same way that the business does, and they should pick that themselves, and they should organize around that. And they should make compliance and governance carry their own water. It's not architects' job to be the bad guy for everything. Compliance and governance need to do that. They can use the architects to help them, but the architect shouldn't be the bad person, not bad guy, bad person for everything. And they need to identify what is valuable to the dev teams and allocate a percentage of their time to that. And they need to identify what's valued to senior management and allocate a percentage to that. So they need to upsell, sell to the dev teams, and they need to be in front of the business. I think if you do those things, architecture will be more than someone who changed their name to Dr. No.